1 in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, I'll end up melting the ceiling.
What's going on, Javier Javier? It's your boy Javier Javier with the Javier Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Politics, religion, and culture. I'm your guy. All you gotta do to join the Javier Javier is to subscribe right now. I got a special guest, somebody that's been a supporter of the show, somebody I find to be very intriguing, and I'm happy to get him on the show and talk about his story. And we're gonna get into some real heavy stuff here. What's going on, Andrew? Tell the people about yourself.
Hey, Javier, I'm super happy to be on the show. I'm actually a business investor and real estate investor, and developer. So I have a real estate fund in Detroit, Michigan, and in Mississippi, and I do real estate in both places. And I'm also a filmmaker. So I'm from Mississippi, a small town in Northeast Mississippi called Columbus, and I went to Columbia University in New York City, and I got my bachelor's there with a focus on creative writing and literature, and with a concentration in creative writing. I got a full scholarship to NYU from the New York Times to get my master's in fine arts in creative writing. So I'm a failed novelist turned fiction. I'm a failed fiction writer turned screenplay writer, film producer, and real estate developer. But I spend most of my time doing real estate because that's where I make my money.
Yeah, we were just talking. I said, you live in the dream. And you said that you're really inspired to actually be a filmmaker. What is it about film that got you, that really motivated you to reach out into that field and try to, what kind of content are you trying to create that inspires you?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do. I usually really love religious stories, ironically, which is great for our conversation today. I aspire to make religious films, Christian films, historical stories. I really like stuff that's about history and also sports. I'm a sports guy. I like sports movies. I feel like comic book movies sort of took the place of sports movies, so you don't get as many anymore because they make so many comic book movies. But to answer your first question, I grew up really loving watching films. My family and I have always shared a passion for going to the movies. Some of my happiest memories were going to the movies. I remember Gettysburg, the movie, came out, I think when I was a young kid, and it was like a 12 o'clock showing, and it was like 3 hours, and it was an R-rated movie, but I got my dad to let me go, and I remember that's a really fond memory, is that we went to watch the 3-hour Gettysburg movie in Mississippi together, and we both share a passion for history and movies that tell those stories.
Oh, that's awesome, man. I'm looking forward to seeing some of your work. You actually showed me one of your short films that you produced, and I was very, very taken aback by it because I found the quality to be awesome. I wish I could get that quality on my videos.
You're headed there. You're headed there, brother. You're headed there. Absolutely.
I'm
definitely headed there.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I appreciate it.
I'm a huge fan. I'm a supporter. So
awesome, man. And I really appreciate your support. So
definitely. We
we are here to talk about your journey from atheism to Christianity.
Yeah, absolutely. I know.
This is
unique.
Exciting. Yes, it's unique. And I'm excited to talk about it. So kind of lay out what it was that caused you to be an atheist in the first place, and when did you become an atheist, and what was that like?
Absolutely. So when I grew up with a religious mother, religious grandparents, like many people in the Black American community here in America. So a lot of Black people in America are Christian. I grew up with grandparents who were very Christian. My mother is very Christian. My father's religious views are more nuanced. Now, he definitely asks a lot of questions, but I don't want to characterize his views for him. I'll let him do that. But so I grew up around religion. I wasn't particularly religious. Around 7 or 8, I was at church, and I kind of had some instinct to join the church. I joined the church. There wasn't a lot of thought into it. I joined the church. It felt like a great community. There was a community that supported me and made me feel special and loved. I think at some point I drifted away. I think I thought I was too intelligent for Christianity, which I now think is like a very dumb thought. but at the time I thought, oh man, I'm too smart for this. I can't be a Christian. I can't believe
what kind of denomination was it? Do you remember?
It was Baptist. Absolutely, it was Baptist. And I'm now a member of that church again as an adult. But yes, a Missionary Union Baptist, so just a historically Black Baptist church. And so I just started asking a lot of questions, and I didn't really go to the right people looking for answers, and I just thought I had all the answers. So I became a hardcore atheist, Javier. I'm telling you, bro, I was the type of atheist that I would say if you believed in Christ, you were like a Zeus believer. Like you were crazy, you were delusional. Like, why would you believe in like a God? It just sounds like magic. You believe in magic, like
at what age?
Believe in that.
At what age are you at this moment?
So like 10. By 10, I'm like hardcore, not religious. And I'm like from 10 to 30. I'm like going in. I'm like the guy that wants to argue about religion. Like I'm that guy that like wants to tell you how dumb you sound when you say religious stuff. So all the stuff that I remember reading books about, where it would be like a journalist who was questioning God, and he was saying, "Oh, this religious person answered my questions." But I would be like, I agree with the journalist beforehand. I don't think this guy answered your question. Like his answers don't make sense. So I was a hardcore atheist. I don't want to downplay that at all. So I think what changed was a couple close friends of mine I started having long, intelligent conversations with them where they weren't defensive. So I would say a good close friend of mine, Adam Gardner, another close friend of mine, Tobias Brown, they both kind of gave me a space to have long conversations with them where they weren't defensive. That changed. Then 2, I started reading Tolstoy, and Tolstoy was a Christian, and I saw him as one of the most intelligent people in world history. So I started to realize, like, all right, this is not an intelligence thing. There's lots of people who are very intelligent who are Christians. So it's not just that I'm smarter than everybody that's a Christian, because there's clearly historically Christians who are much smarter than me. So that and then I started to meet a few people who actually exemplified what the original message that I had been taught as a kid. So it started to be impossible for me to say, there's nobody that lives up to this. I don't think anybody lives up to it perfectly, but I saw a friend of mine, Kevin Stone, who's actually a fraternity brother of mine, and another fraternity brother of mine, Clifford Pierre. They sort of embodied enough of what Christ's message was that it led me to be open to it. Now,
okay. Let me ask you.
I'm talking a lot. Let me ask you a question. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah. So during this journey, while you're talking to all your friends and you're getting this feedback, and you're starting to see that the intellectuals can be Christians as well.
Yep.
Is there any moment in your journey that you were following any of the big intellectual atheists or?
Yeah, absolutely. Sam, I know you're a fan of Sam
Harris. Yeah.
Sam Harris. Yeah. So I know all Sam Harris, Christopher Hitchens. I saw you tweeted like Christopher Hitchens and what you wonder with Christopher Hitchens. I know all those guys. Now I like them. I did think that some of their anger, like Bill Maher, I know all those guys, and they're obviously all different sides of the political spectrum. But yeah, I knew all those guys and followed them, and I knew all their criticisms. And at a certain point, some of their criticisms started to seem facile to me. So, not Sam, maybe Bill Maher, maybe more because he's more making fun of Christians. Mm-hmm. I think Sam Harris does take it more seriously. And, but yeah, I have followed those guys, and Christopher Hitchens and those famous sort of they're anti-religion, they're atheists, they're famous atheists.
Were any of their arguments convincing to you at the time while you were still an atheist?
So yeah, they were very compelling to me when I was an atheist. That's the crazy thing. I'm telling you, when you're on both sides of an issue, that's why when I see the left and the right, it's because I've been on both sides of the Christianity atheist thing. There is a weird thing where you believe what makes sense to you when you're in one camp doesn't make sense when you're in the other camp. And I mean, all the Christian stuff didn't make any sense to me. And all the atheist stuff made all the sense in the world to me. Now, I thought maybe they would make fun of Christianity too much, but I still fundamentally believe their point of view was right. But so yeah, that was, from a rationality standpoint, I agreed with Christopher Hitchens, and his sort of atheist point of view, when that was my frame of reference. My frame of reference was rationality, then I agreed with Christopher Hitchens.
Okay, so let's get back to, you're talking to your friends and people that you know and care about, and some people that you admire are making some valid points that are starting to open you back up to the experience of being a Christian. At what point do you take that leap and get into the actual saying, okay,
to actually believing?
To actually believe.
Yeah, because I would even say at a certain point, I stopped being hostile to Christianity. And I would just say, look, I'm not hostile to it. I just don't believe it. I mean, it's like, it's a thing that you have to believe. It's a religion.
Yeah.
If you don't believe it, then it's like, you can't, you just don't believe it. So what happened was, I think I had personal challenges and professional challenges. So I think I've always been a high achieving person, high achieving guy, sort of what some people would call the alpha male type energy and personality. But I did find that despite my intelligence, despite my work ethic, there were certain moments and certain challenges, both personally and professionally, that my intelligence and my work ethic, they weren't solving those problems. And being honest with myself about those things, I started to realize there was problems and obstacles I was having in life. And around when I turned 30, those problems and obstacles, they reached a crescendo. And in that crescendo, I basically had what I would call a St. Augustine in the garden, or the St. Augustine in the garden moment. So I had it's like I had an epiphany moment. I had an experience of God. I had a spiritual moment where I would say mine wasn't in the garden. Mine was like Andrew in the pool. But I had a moment where I had a profound spiritual experience. In the way that experience translated for me was my ancestors I was open to a communication with them that wasn't literal or verbal, but was emotional. There was an emotional connection to my direct ancestors. Now, I'm not saying like the abstract ancestors. Yeah, I'm talking like my grandparents, the ones that had passed. I felt an emotional connection with them, and I felt a healing. And then within that healing, my first conscious thought was, I don't know what this is. Is this, this is mine. Hold on 1 second. Sorry. And in that conscious healing, the first conscious thought I had was Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior of God. So in this emotional healing place, I had that first thought, Jesus Christ is the Lord and Savior of God. And I went and told my two friends that I believed that. So I believed it. Now, I could also say, man, maybe I had a mental health issue. I was struggling, my life was hard, it was difficult. I was in a difficult moment. I was searching for a breakthrough. From a rationality standpoint, maybe
That's what I was going to ask you. That's what I was going to ask
you. Maybe the thought of death and everyone dying and that just being it, maybe that was not enough for me. I couldn't handle that emotionally, and I needed to believe in something else. So, it's one of those things where I'm not going to be dishonest and say, I want to tell the real story. And the real story is I was in a difficult place. Now, I think if you get into Christianity, it is often said that people find God when they are in difficult spaces. So from a Christian standpoint, that's not abnormal, but I do say that, hey, it could be just a mental health thing. I had a breakdown. I could have just had a nervous breakdown.
Because you were talking about your friends being making an intelligent conversation with you and giving you certain points that were starting to click and make sense to you. How much of the intellectual conversation played into your experience, and how much was it an emotional appeal? Can you separate those two?
Yeah, 100%. It was an emotional thing. Faith is an emotion. It's not a thought, I don't think. I think people try. I think you can bring a lot of intellectual thinking into faith, but it is an emotion ultimately at its root. And I think it's a powerful emotion, and I think emotions are just as valid as thoughts, but I think that it is an emotion. I don't think it was a thought thing. Once I had the emotion, I then studied. So as the same way you guys got Christopher Hitchens, we got C.S. Lewis. We have Dietrich Bonhoeffer. We have heavyweights that explain away a lot of the dilemmas that I had previously thought were trapping Christianity. So in the same way that you can find someone as intelligent as Sam Harris to debate this issue of Christianity, of atheism, I can find someone just as intelligent to debate the issue of Christianity. So So I definitely started reading those people and really studying and learning about apologists and the way they explained Christianity. And I started to have an intellectual understanding of Christianity and an intellectual rationalization of how Christianity existed with the scientific rational world. But ultimately, it was a feeling at its root that brought me to it.
Okay. I appreciate your honesty because I think when I became an atheist, it was more from a place of intellectual honesty, reading the Bible front to back, start understanding some of the concepts in the Bible, seeing what other religions had to offer and how they compared, and certain things just started not adding up to me. I've listened to the Christian apologists. A lot of the times, the people who love to debate or have these conversations are the ones who listen to either the apologists or some of the big name atheists, and we fall in love with the whole concept of rationally having these discussions. And I do want to kind of, get into some of the things that you believe and and why you believe what you believe. But we're gonna hold off on that for just a second because I want that to be in the Patreon section. I want us to really, kind of. I'm not going to try to beat up on you or nothing like that.
No, I'm not worried about it. Yeah. I know you. You're very, very, that's not your ethic. That's not the way you're trying to do your show. So I didn't expect that at all. Yeah.
Yeah. And most people, when they say, oh, I used to be an atheist and now I'm a Christian, they usually are talking about what they just didn't believe, but they were never truly in atheism in a sort. And it seems to me like you have actually been like a hardcore no God, none of this makes sense. What was that like with your family? Like when you were in your atheism, did you have these discussions with your family members and your close friends at that age?
Only my really close members, only my really close family members. My extended family, it would just be too awkward because they were so religious. But like my mom, my dad, my brother, I have a twin brother, and my older sister, them, I definitely felt free to talk about it. And, they're very questioning people. My mom is a Christian, but she's not like she's a liberal Christian. I mean, she votes Democrat. So, she's not like dogmatic in her Christianity. She doesn't think she has all the answers. So when people express doubt around her or ask questions, she doesn't shut them down. She accepts their questions. She's married to a man who asks lots of questions. I have a father who is a very inquisitive person. So I definitely was trained to ask questions. So I definitely felt comfortable asking questions. And, I think a lot of atheist points make sense. If you're a Christian and you're trying to take the magic part out of Christianity and you're just trying to say there's no element of it miracles are magic, right? They're basically saying science doesn't explain everything. So, you got to accept that some people are not going to believe that. Some people are not going to have that feeling. But I, looking at the world, see that there's magic all over. The whole world looks magical to me from this standpoint now. So when I look at the world now, the whole thing looks magical, and it looks obvious that there's a magical hand behind it. But I can see previously, looking at all the ugliness in the world, that the hostility seems like, oh, what is the magic? There's just too much ugliness in the world. That's what I find the atheists really get you when you're a Christian. They really get you on that, why is the world so messed up? If there's a God, why did God make the world so messed up? That's the hard one, that people struggle with.
I think that's one of the things that most people suffer with, even the intellectuals, when it comes to the problem of what we would call evil. Most people wrestle with that, even religious, non-religious. So I think that there's some of the things that I want to ask you, some of the things that, I want to see how you make amends with some of these concepts of evil and suffering in the world. And, some of the things
I give you the short answer. I blame men. I blame humans.
Oh yeah, we finna
that's it. I just blame humans. That's it. I don't blame God. I blame humans.
We finna have an interesting conversation. Well, I appreciate you coming on. I want you to plug anything that you want people to know about you.
Okay, absolutely. Yeah. So I make films, but right now I'm still setting up all my stuff. So just follow me on Facebook at Andrew Colom, COLOM, Andrew Colom. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter, the same. Andrew Colom. I don't really do a lot of social media. I'm just starting to do that so I can promote some more of my films and do more interviews and talk about stuff and be more involved in the new media world. But you can find me at Andrew Colom on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Sounds good, man. Look, go check him out, man. This guy is amazing. I find this guy to be a very well-spoken guy, a very honest guy, and I just love having this conversation with him. So we finna move to the Patreon section. So if you really want to get the meat of the conversation, we finna get into Christianity specifically. You know, gotta say it twice. You gotta go sign up at patreon.com/the Javier Javier Show. You know where to find it. Thank y'all for watching. Till next time, peace.
1 in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen, out in the melting the ceiling.